Welcome to Geometry Owners!
Bye, Josh.
I'm like, please let that not be the only thing that records.
They're gone.
Okay, let's try this again. So we want to look at that half of the triangle. And what do we know about? What do we know about the diagonal? Think about the diagonals of a square. So Sarah? Oh, you weren't raising your hand? Oh.
I didn't do so well.
Brittany, what were you going to say?
Well, each
Oh, wait.
side, like each corner of the square is 90 degrees and the diagonals bisect it, so it's going to be 45 and 45.
Right, it's going to end up being 45 and 45.
And that makes it a special right triangle.
That makes it one of our
Bless you.
special right triangles.
You're telling the truth, he sneezed.
So we get 45, 45, 90. We also know it has to be 45, 45, 90 because if it's a square, these two are isosceles, and if there's a right angle, then the only choices would be for the other two angles to be 45 and 45. Now let's look at, let's say each side is 1. What's going to end up happening with our hypotenuse? So, Josh?
It's c squared.
Okay, so we're going to say,
Pythagorean to find out.
Let's
that
say it's
a
c.
Square
Square root
root
of 2.
so we get 1 squared plus 1 squared equals c squared. So c squared is 2. So we get c is square root of 2. So we get 1, 1, and this ends up being square root of 2. So if we were to do the Pythagorean theorem with any squares, so let's say instead of 1, what do you think would happen if this was a 3, this was a 3? What do you think you would get for the hypotenuse? What do you think, Josh?
Lose my head.
So let's say, let's just give you them. So if we had
Really?
3 squared plus 3 squared equals c squared. So if you have 9 plus 9 is
18.
18.
Square root of that. Then you can take out a 9, so you get 3 square root of
3 square root 2.
Did I get that right?
You got that right.
You taught me well.
So we have 1, 1, square root 2. And I said, what if we change those sides to 3? So if this was 3, this was 3, this would end up being 3 root 2. So any square will have that same relationship that's where the two sides, so if we have 5, this is 5, this would be 5 root 2. This is 10, 10, the hypotenuse would be 10 root 2. Go ahead.
So it just-
it's not a square. So
Right.
It's always going to be 10
and you're going to
times the
put that
square.
on the test
Well,
when you
it's always going to be this side times the square root of 2, right?
The sides,
So it's always going the hypotenuse is always going to be
The
the
hy-
side times the square root of 2, right?
right. Now, we have to be careful because we are not always going to be given the sides. Like, for example, what if I gave you the hypotenuse, which I believe we had some kind of examples with the last, is it last test? I think I might have had something. Or maybe you had the sides and you had to find the diagonal. But regardless, the hypotenuse is always going to be the square root of 2 times the leg. So in this 45, 45, 90 triangle, obviously we have, here's our hypotenuse. And it doesn't matter which leg we're referring to because they're the same. So the legs of a right triangle are the ones that form the right angle. So if I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, and I know the leg, I can always find the hypotenuse. What if I'm trying to figure out what the leg is equal to? So Brittany?
Divided by the square root of 2.
Yeah, so you just take the hypotenuse and you would divide by root 2. That's all. Make sense? So if you know what the hypotenuse is,
So if you know
So
that
it's
one
one,
of those
right?
special triangles, 45, 45, 90, this always works.
this always works. So as long as you memorize this part, the hypotenuse is equal to square root of 2 times the leg.
So sorry.
As long as you remember that the hypotenuse is equal to square root of 2 times the leg, you can solve, what we say is we solve the right triangle because we can figure out all the sides.
Well, let's see.
So let's look at example 1.
Wait, so it's never going to come up and then you talk to me?
English test today.
Oh, it could. It could.
Carry out my
So Josh, that's a good question in terms of in terms of
Guys, focus up.
In terms of the lengths that you're given for the legs, I will tell you, if you're given whole numbers for the legs, you'll always have square root of 2 in the hypotenuse. But if you have something with a square root here, and actually square root of 2, then the hypotenuse will end up being a whole number. Okay? And it all depends. But the relationship, guys, the relationship is always the same. This. Hypotenuse equals root 2 times the leg. Just memorize that. The hypotenuse is equal to square root of 2 times the leg. Great. Okay, so this first one. Here's the thing. There should be no work involved here. Okay, there's no work involved. Roni, what were you going to say? Oh, how about Roni, and then we can write the next one. Roni.
And so since the legs are equal, so it's equals 5, and y equals 5.
That's it.
Postcard.
That was as easy as it gets. So if you know one of the legs, the other leg has to be the same because it's isosceles, and then the hypotenuse is the leg times root 2. This time, okay, so in this square, we are given the diagonal, which would be the hypotenuse of the 45, 45, 90.
Okay, so it's 20 over root 2, which equals 20 root 2.
Okay, so this is going to be equal to an x and y because, again, we know these are going to be congruent to each other. So once we figure out what x is equal to, we'll also know what y is. Okay, so this 20 over root 2, I don't want to leave in this form because we don't want to leave a square root in the denominator.
So it's
So
20 root
we're going to...
2. Plus you.
Oh my God. Bless. Anyone have a tissue? Oh, there's a tissue.
I have paper towels in my backpack. 10 root 2.
Oh my God.
No, it's 20 root 2. Yeah, it is. No, that's root 2.
It comes out to 10 root 2 equals x.
Oh, you take that boom that
Why do my sneezes cause earthquakes in Nicaragua?
Wait, can you hold it?
I got this right.
Pop it down.
And I saved the problem.
Once again, Father, this is a little bit of complicated.
How is that a 30, 90, 60? Where's my right angle?
What? There's another color here right here?
Okay, so that was the one triangle. Next, we want to look at 30, 60, 90. So what we're going to do for this one is we're going to start with an equilateral triangle. Okay, and we're going to draw the altitude. Or you can draw any altitude, so I'm just going to draw the one from the top. So we're going to cut an equilateral triangle in half. So we know equilateral triangles are also equiangular, which means they all have the same measure. They're all 60 degrees. So this top angle would be also 60. But I'm only focused on half the triangle, which would make this 30. Now remember, I just said that we're cutting it in half. So if the whole side would be 2, then that makes this side 1. So if you have an equilateral triangle, you can always figure out the length of the altitude. In this case, we know what C is. C is 2. Let's say A is 1. And we want to figure out what B is. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I want to look at the relationship between these three sides of the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we get 1 here. So B squared is equal to 3. So B is root 3. Okay, so we have, in this 30, 60, 90 triangle, we have a hypotenuse, which is 2. And then we have 2 legs, but we want to kind of make sure that we don't get them mixed up. One is a shorter leg and one is a longer leg. How do we know which one is shorter? Okay, but
Directly across from the
okay, so it's opposite the 30-degree angle because 30 degrees is the smaller angle, and we learned in our previous chapter that opposite the shorter angle will be the smaller side. So this is the shorter leg and then the longer leg. So the shorter leg is 1, the longer leg is root 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. The relationship between the shorter leg and the hypotenuse will always be a ratio of 1 to 2. So if this is 3, the hypotenuse would be 6. Okay? Or if I have the hypotenuse is 20, then the shorter leg would be 10. Okay? The relationship here is always going to follow this, where here's the shorter leg. We're just going to say it's n. The hypotenuse is always going to be twice that. Again, why do we know it's twice it? Because it came from an equilateral triangle cut in half. And then the longer leg is always going to be that shorter leg times root 3. So if you can remember these two relationships, so the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the shorter leg, and the longer leg is the square root of 3 times the shorter leg, then you can find any missing measure with the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So you want to just memorize that.
To remember.
Yeah, that's what you need to memorize.
That's a lot of memory.
Okay?
So
So,
you know what we have to remember?
so the 45, 45, 90, you needed to remember that the hypotenuse was the square root of 2 times the leg. But with 30, 60, 90, you need to remember 2 things. One is that the hypotenuse is 2 times the shorter leg, and that the longer leg is the square root of 3 times the shorter leg. So if you know one side, you could figure out the other 2. So let's look at example 2. What's that?
You got math formulas tattooed on your arm. I mean, it's not like they're cheating because they're always there.
I'm not sure who would want to do that. I mean, I
There's
enjoy
probably
math, but
someone in
even
the world that has them.
I'm sure there is
What if
one
all the
person.
important formulas?
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is off topic.
Okay,
Stop distracting me.
I don't want to do this.
let's take a look.
Instead of a tattoo.
So
Y is going to be 20.
it helps you
Or you can get a
to
Sharpie. That goes away.
it helps you to determine which ones are the shorter leg, which one's the longer leg, and which one's the hypotenuse. So 10. Okay, so 10 is the shorter leg. X is the longer leg. And obviously Y is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. Okay, so you done?
Okay, x equals 10 square root of 3 and y equals 1.
You know this.
Okay. We're good with that? I mean, that was just right from the theorem. Okay, Danielle. Sure. Tablet or board? You could use the tablet.
Can I write it to?
Do math problems.
Ah, so
Oh, because it's
okay,
not the
okay.
hypotenuse.
Oh, okay.
maybe I don't know how to stop with it. Okay, the longer leg is 12. So what was the relationship between the longer leg and, so this is the shorter leg here, which I'm not even asking for.
I'm confused about how we're looking.
Yeah, I'm confused about how she got to 24. That's not.
Because you're not looking for just this part. Like, you're not looking for just this part. You're looking for the whole thing.
No, I get that, but for that answer, I don't think.
Oh wait, they can't, yeah, they are going to be the
Is it 8 through 3? Or
it should be 8 root. Make it 8.
Oh, sorry. 8 root 3.
Okay.
Both of them 8 root.
I'm like,
I
no.
finally understand something now that it wrong.
Sorry. I'm like,
Yes, I understand the math.
wait, no, because wouldn't it be root 3 times root 3?
No, but it's,
Oh, root 3 times 2, so.
You leave the
Never, yeah.
root 2.
Nope, nope.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
Yeah, Rachel, sit down. Everybody else be quiet. Okay,
Got
let me
it.
explain. So you're starting with, oh, did it stop? Did the internet stop working? Oh, okay. Okay, you're starting out with the longer leg. Again, just kind of focus in on that 30, 60, 90 triangle. The longer leg is what you're starting with. And we know that the longer leg has the relationship. Did it show up now? Okay.
Basically, x equals 12 root 3.
So the longer, we had just above there, the longer leg was equal to the shorter times root 3, right? That's what I circled above. I know the longer leg is 12. I'm looking for this length, so I would divide by root 3, right? I'm not actually looking for the shorter leg, but if I could figure out what the shorter leg is, I can figure out what x would be equal to, which then is the same as y because you have an equilateral triangle. So I'm dividing both sides by root 3, which 12 root 3. When I rationalize that, we get 12 root 3 over 3. Which reduces to 4 root 3. Now that's just this part right here. This is 4 root 3. Well, what happens when I double that to find x? 8 root 3. And this is an equilateral triangle, so y is also 8 root 3. Questions? Did that clear that up? Okay.
Makes sense.
So now let's look at how does this affect if we start with an equilateral triangle's perimeter. Can we find a length of the equilateral triangle? The hypotenuse is 2 times the shorter leg. Roni, did you have another question, or do you want to?
I didn't get it right on the board.
You want to write on the board? Yes. You want to write on the board? All right. How about Roni example 3 and then Don example 4?
This case is, let's say that somebody has really bad handwriting and they can't always read it, but they want to write things on the board. Is it even worth it? No, you can use it.
What was
The touch.
I think
She had an epiphany. The equal
Try this one, guys.
Oh, we can?
I did it, just space it.
If the perimeter is 18.
Thank you.
Ready, you ready? I'm sorry.
Okay. So,
What is that?
I understand.
Since it's an equilateral triangle, all the sides are 6 because 18 divided by 3 is 6. So each side is 6. And then since the altitude separates it, 6 is divided into 3 and 3. And then since the altitude is always like the altitude, like one of the legs times root 2, it's 3 root 2.
No, it's
It's root
It's
3.
3 root 3.
Yeah, man.
Isn't it
You best be going back to Jamaica. On.
wait, I thought for the first one everything was root 2.
45, 90, 45.
Is this not? But that was an equilateral triangle. That's exactly what I meant. I don't know why I wrote 2.
Mom, you
I was so confused. I don't know why I did that.
Oh, it is 3 root 3.
Okay, everything with the 30, 60, 90, just remember the first number 30 has that's the root 3. 45, 45, 90. 45, 45, 90 has
other
2
one.
of the same angle, so it has root 2.
Ooh,
I don't know, that's how I usually try to remember. 30, 60, 90 has the root 3 in it. 45, 45, 90 has 2 of the same angle, so it has root 2. Okay? All right, Adon, you were going to do example 4?
I don't know. I'm confused.
Oh, okay.
I can try, but I probably mess it up.
All right, well then I'll just 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters is the diagonal. So I'm looking for the perimeter. So these two are, again, this is the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Let's just call this X. Again, what is the relationship? Well, in a 45, 45, 90, it's square root of 2 times the leg. So that's why I said the best way to do these 30, 60, 90, 45, 40, just memorize the formulas. I mean, hopefully the pictures also help to make sense. So I'll just call this times X. So I'm going to divide both sides by square root of 2. So I'm going to rationalize, which will give me 10 root 2 over 2, which is 5 root 2.
Please multiply that by 4 to get the perimeter, right?
My sneeze sometimes doesn't work in this.
Yes, I got it right.
And this will be centimeters.
Oh.
They gave us units. If they give you units, please.
Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Where'd you get the red pencil? Oh, you know the little. It's just, I don't know how it's. I got that. I just opened up the base of one.
Square root of 2x. And then you
No,
can
it used to not be like this.
Wait,
It
what?
used to
Why is it
arc over and it went over that like that.
Perimeter.
It was stuck in there.
Perimeter of
And then it
square
got
on the
pencil and I
outside,
twisted
so
and I
multiply
broke
by
it and
four.
now I don't know what happens.
I found one side, I just didn't read it.
All right, next
Very
one.
frustrated. This one is a little
Oh, I got it.
I get it, but I didn't got it.
Wait, is this
Yada yahoo.
It's a weird.
This is
I
awful.
can't hear you.
Is it okay? I didn't make it like with the X and everything. All I did was I did 10 over root 2 and then I just kind of.
Right, so I just, you know, I show work not for myself, but for people that aren't here or for the notes. No. In fact, anytime you have, so I'm hoping that you're seeing a relationship even if you have the hypotenuse is a whole number. What's going to happen when you divide by root 2?
Not gonna be a whole number.
Well, it's always going to be half of this times root 2. So if I gave you a diagonal, so in this case it was 10, so the side ended up being 5 root 2. What if I gave you the side was 14? It would be 7 root 2. What if I gave you a side, what if I gave you a side that was 9?
4.5 root 2.
4.5 root 2 or 9 halves root 2.
What did you give us the side of root 2?
So if I gave you a side that was root 2, okay, the leg,
Yeah.
are you talking about this as being root 2? The leg?
No, the hypotenuse of
If the leg was root 2, then it would be 1. Isn't that the very first example we did? 1 root 2. Okay. Let's look at the last example. So this
really
one,
Yeah, I got like 5 red 6.
I just got 10 red 6 over 3.
Yeah, 10 red 6 over 3 is my hypotenuse.
And then 5 red 6 over 3. And then 5 red 6 over 3.
No, did it.
you did it. So I don't need to do it.
Wait,
Yes,
no,
yes, you
no,
did.
no, wait, is case it,
Go
but
for it.
don't you have
Let's
to find
call
the
this
length
X.
of every single side of the triangle? Or is
The
that
length
just
of
a
each
small
side of
triangle?
the triangle.
Is that the small triangle or big triangle that we're talking about for that, for those legs? I'm asking what?
Okay, the longer leg is equal to square root of 3 times the shorter leg. If you're not sure what to do, figure out of the 30, 60, 90 triangle, what are you given or what are you looking for? I'm given the longer leg, and if I could figure out the shorter leg, then I could figure out the hypotenuse and so on. So I know this is 5 root 2, and I'm just going to let the shorter leg be x. So when I divide by root 3, we get 5 root 2 over root 3. So I'm going to multiply by root 3 over root 3, which gives us 5 root 6 over 3. There's nothing you can do to simplify that. Sorry?
Wait, when it says find the length of each of the triangles, that talking about the small triangle or the big triangle?
The big triangle,
Okay,
the
good.
original triangle. We used cutting it in half so that we could figure out all the sides. Since it's equilateral, all sides
Or the same thing.
will be,
Really? Equal.
yeah. What are they gonna be? Well, they're gonna be twice
10
this.
radical 6 over 3.
Well, I'm not gonna read it because I'm just using my brain.
Magic.
And it doesn't give us,
Oh, that's it? That was a pretty short lesson. Kind of. Can I go get my book from downstairs?
Like 25 minutes.
I know, but yeah, can I start the homework?